Hi everyone, welcome, it's Kim Dellow here, and today I've got an old-fashioned crayon off with the Twistables Slick Stix from Crayola versus the Distress crayons from Tim Holtz and Ranger. So let's have a closer look at these two products. The Slick Stix come in 12 colours, and you can get a pack of all 12 colours or you can get a pack of 5 of the brights. The Distress crayons come in packs of 6 colours, and at the moment there are 3 packs available. Both products come in a plastic tube with a lid, and they have these twistable ends so you can expose more of the product as you use it. They're both about the same height, but the Slick Stix are slightly thicker. At time of recording this, you'd find the Slick Stix, all 12 of them, at around about $11.95 UK sterling or $11.99 US dollars, and a pack of 6 of the Distress crayons are $11.99 UK sterling and $12.99 US dollars. The Slick Stix describe themselves as creamy smooth colours. They are very rich and very creamy, and they go on really smoothly. They come in some lovely colours, and I love the fact that in one pack of 12 you also get a gold and a silver and the white as well, which is great. You get some lovely strong primaries, plus a violet and a green, and you also get 2 types of blue, sky blue and dark blue, and brown as well. So the Distress crayon pack that I have is set 1, and this is the brighter set of colours, and all of the Distress crayon colours obviously match the Tim Holtz Distress range. So in set 1 we've got Spiced Marmalade, Mermaid Lagoon, Picked Raspberry, Mustard Seed, Peacock Feathers and Twisted Citron. On first finding, I think that the Distress crayons are slightly softer and slightly more crumbly than the Slick Stix. Time to put these crayons through their paces, and I'm going to test them out on various techniques. You'll find a close-up of the results at the end of this video and also on my blog. So the first technique I'm going to try is using some cut and dry foam to apply the colour onto my paper. And I'm going to apply it through a stencil or just directly straight onto the paper. And how I'm doing this is I'm scribbling the crayon onto a piece of plastic and then picking up the colour with the cut and dry foam. You can use any kind of sponge, that's no problem. And both crayons pretty much work the same way with this technique. Both products are water soluble, so I'm going to again scribble them on a piece of plastic and this time pick them up with a water brush and apply them to the paper. Both crayons react very similarly with this technique, and the watercolour brush kind of smushes the pigment around, but it applies quite well to the paper. It's not going to replace your watercolours, but it's going to add some nice effect to your mixed media projects. And the next thing I'm going to try is one of my favourite techniques for using with watercolour pencils, and that's to take the colour straight off of the nib with the brush. Not much difference again between the two crayons, although I think it was slightly easier on the Slick Stick to get colour off of the nib. So we've seen the direct paper when I tested out the colours earlier, but now how about a bit of direct paper and then followed by the water brush over the top. Both crayons react well with the water and the pigment is easily moved around, although you do still get that scribbled look underneath, which is fine if it's texture you're looking for. Next is Smudge Ability, and if I just move the pigment around with my finger, I can tell that the Distress crayon, because it's just that bit softer, it is easier to move the pigment around. Next up is to do a little bit of colour mixing. So using the pink and the yellow, it's again really soft and easy to mix. This time I'm going to use the red and the yellow of the Slick Stix, and again you do get that mix, but because it is just that very much slightly harder, you have to work at it a bit harder too. Then I wanted to try layering up the colours, so I used 2 methods. One where I just put one colour on top of another directly, and the other one where I use a sponge to take off the colour from the palette and then smudge it over the top. Using the sponge you got some very interesting resist looks from the first layer. You'll be able to see it in the close-up stills at the end of this video. As both these crayons react really well to water, I thought I'd try lifting up some of the colour through a stencil. So I started with a baby wipe, and the Distress crayon lifts quite cleanly with the baby wipe. The Slick Stick, it's not quite as clean, the pigment's so strong that it moves around, but it's still a very interesting look. I then used a little bit of cut and dry with some water and just dabbed through the stencil, and again a Distress crayon comes up really cleanly, and the Slick Stick, the colour moves around a bit more. Again, it's a really good look, so both looks are good. For my next set of experiments, I wanted to let the crayon have a little bit of an opportunity to air dry for a few minutes. So I'm just placing those down and then I'm going to work through them one by one. So I'm going to try that water lift technique again, but this time I'm going to try it over 2 layers of colour. So I'm dabbing a sponge of water through a stencil, and on a distress crayon it lifts up really cleanly. On the Slick Stick it lifts up cleanly, but not quite as cleanly as the distress crayon does. In both cases, the bottom layer has acted like a resist and made it easier to lift the colour off. I then thought I'd try some stamping over the top, so I'm just using the Ranger archival ink. You get a really clear image, they're very easy to stamp over the top. But if you run your finger over them, they will smudge. But you do generally have to give the Ranger archival ink a little bit of time to dry. On these final patches of colour that I'd set out, I thought I'd use a little bit of the Tim Holtz Ranger Distress ink over the top, applied with a sponge, and then I've also tried a little bit of spritzing some water over the top as well, and you can see where the crayons resist the ink. All my experiments so far have just been done directly onto paper, so I wanted to see what would happen if I treated the paper beforehand. So on the left hand side, the top 2 panels I've got a layer of gesso, and the bottom 2 panels I've got a layer of regular gel in the glass. And both crayons pretty much worked exactly the same on both of the treated papers. They were very easy to manipulate, very easy to smudge around, and they lifted off really well on the treated paper, so that's well worth giving a go as well. Before I finish up, I wanted to revisit the stamping, so this time I heat treated the distress crayons and the Slick Stick, and neither of them budge after you've heat treated them. I stamped over the top with the archival ink again, and then heat treated the stamping as well. This time when I rubbed them with a finger, the ink stayed where it was. Interesting enough, when I went over with a water brush, both the distress crayon and the Slick Stick still reacted to the water, but only slightly. So all in all, the Crayola Slick Sticks and the Tim Holtz Distress crayons react very similarly to various techniques. I think that the Slick Sticks are more pigmented and have a stronger colours, but the Distress crayons are softer and more pliant. The major difference is the price. The Distress crayons are more expensive and slightly smaller. In the end, there is nothing stopping you from having both in your toolkit, particularly if you wanted to have a bigger range of colours. But if cost is an issue, and let's face it, it usually is, then I would go with the Crayola and try mixing the colours. I hope you found this product face-off useful. I would love to hear your views on these 2 products, so do leave me any comments or questions you might have in the section below. Thanks for watching, bye!